you can see, I did have to get a brown crayon, but you can see that the darker brown is here and the lighter brown is here. So we're using lots of different values to make our seagull and our log or pier look more interesting, okay? Now, the next thing we're gonna do is paint this background with watercolors, all right? So you're gonna get a set of watercolors. Here's mine. I do have a couple of dirty spots and we are gonna be using yellow, so I will need to clean that. The way that you clean it is you get it wet and then you clean it out with a paper towel. So I gotta get a paper towel. Okay, so this video, I'm gonna get it wet. My yellow is dirty. I'm gonna get it wet with my paintbrush and rub it really good. All right, and then you take and you just dab at it. Okay, if it's still not clean enough, you get it wet again. Now sometimes it looks like it's a little dirty, but it still makes a really nice yellow, or if there's some brown in it, it might make like a golden yellow that you really like, or some orange, it might look good too. Okay, but we're gonna be using yellow and brown for our sand. And I want you guys to start with your sand because it's the lightest color.
I'm gonna lock up over here.
Okay, sounds good. Okay, so we're gonna start with our yellow. And this is watercolor paper, so your watercolors will blend really nicely, and you wanna use a lot of water. Okay, I didn't even go back for paint that time, I just got more water on my brush. And we're gonna do a section at a time. So I'm gonna paint this section yellow. All right, but that's really kind of bright yellow for sand, don't you think? So now I'm gonna come back with a little bit of brown. I got my paintbrush wet again, okay? I'm gonna come back with a little bit of brown, and I'm gonna blend it into that. And it doesn't have to be perfectly blended. You can have some dark spots and some light spots. Okay, but you're just taking a little bit and blending it in, okay? You could also come in if you want to and do some little dabs like this. That'll create like the texture of sand. I'm only gonna do that up close right here because sand far away would just be a color. You won't be able to see all that texture. So I'm just gonna make it kind of disappear as it goes further away. All right, so now that we did that section, we're going to rinse our paintbrush really good. Get some more yellow and see how that's a lot brighter. So I'm gonna add a little bit water to my paintbrush. And I'm gonna spread it out. It's okay to paint right over your name. That's why we're doing watercolors. Okay, and then we're gonna add our brown. Just a touch of brown. If you get too much, just rinse your paintbrush and let the water do its work. And it's okay if you have a darker area. Sand is not uniform, perfect color. It's okay if you get a little bit into your seagull. I just did. Got a little brown on his bottom. It's okay. Okay, and then I'm going to come up and do some more of this, like I did on that side, just to make it uniform. And that's, I got a little bit darker, so I'm going to come back and do some more over here. Okay, and there is our sandy beach. All right, next, we're gonna do our ocean. We wanna use blues and greens in our oceans, okay? And you have lots of those. You have these greens, this one's like a blue green, you have turquoise, and then you have your regular blue. To make it look like it's got the waves of the ocean, what I like to do is give it some texture. So I'm gonna start with this kind of turquoise color. And I'm just gonna give it, now you wanna be careful around the bird's head to not go straight through it. What I like to do is kind of outline it. Okay, and I'm gonna paint this whole entire section turquoise to start with, just to get down a base color. Okay, and that time I did not even get more paint. All I did Let's get some more water. And we're just going up to the horizon line. Now the sky will be blue, but we're gonna do something to make it a different kind of shade than the ocean. Okay, so we're just spreading it out. Okay, gosh, that looks good already, doesn't it? So what I'm gonna do is come back in and I'm gonna take some of this blue-green, and you can do this with as many colors as you want, but I'm just gonna do it with the blue-green and then the blue. And I'm gonna come through and do these little dashes like this. Once again, talking about texture. We did the texture of the bird. Now we're gonna do some texture in the ocean. We did some texture here, and notice it's also got some value. A lot of times you use value to create texture. Value is lights and darks. The turquoise is a lighter blue, and then this blue-green is a darker blue, right? Value, lights and darks. Okay. Notice I'm not going back for paint very often. I'm just letting the brush do its thing and use what it's got. And we're gonna come back in a minute and add, you'll see on my example, it's got these little white caps up front from where the ocean meets the sand. And we're gonna come back and add that in with another kind of paint, okay, in just a second. All right. And then the last thing we're gonna do is the sky. Now, I totally forgot to have you guys do this, and I'm not totally remaking this video. So your teacher will stop you when you're drawing and have you do this. But if you want some birds, you're gonna wanna make those ahead of time. Just a few, not a lot. Because we're also gonna have clouds, and the paint we use for your clouds will go over your birds, okay, and cover them up. So you could have like 2 or 3 birds if you wanted to. All right, okay. All right, so now for my sky, I'm gonna use blue and purple, but you could really use any colors if you want to. You could also add another color to your ocean if you want to. Like I could take that brighter blue and add some of that in there, but I think I'm good with where I'm at. Okay, so for your sky, I'm gonna switch to a bigger paintbrush, and I'm gonna use blues and purples. Okay, and I'm gonna start with just this dabbing technique, or you could also kind of circle around and then dab on the edges. Okay, it's almost like you're making like clouds of color. I'm using the kind of magenta purple color. It's not like a true purple. And you could use all purple, or you could use blue. You just want it to look different than this blue. So on this one, I used turquoise and that blue-green. So I could use the bright blue up in the sky, okay? You gotta have a different blue than what you used. I'm gonna do 3 of these sections, these little color clouds, okay? And then I'm gonna come back, and like I said, I'm gonna use this brighter blue, and I'm gonna blend the edges. So you see how when I get to the edge of these colors where they meet, I'm not trying to keep them separate. I want them to kind of blend together. And you don't want your water to pull up too much, because we're gonna be adding white clouds to this in a minute. So you really wanna kind of spread that out. Oops. Okay, and then I'm going to come through for my last color with the actual purple, like the bright purple. I'm going to finish up in here with that. And you see how I'm just blending the edges and I'm making them kind of go into each other. You can dab a little bit. And as it dries, it'll just look like a cotton candy sky. But you gotta use plenty of water, okay? All right. Okay, so we're gonna clean up a little bit. From that, your next step will be to add some white. So set these to the side. Your teacher might have you clean up your watercolors and a couple other things. And then we're gonna pass out white paint, and then I'll show you how we're gonna add. Now, my ocean's pretty dry. It doesn't have to be completely dry, but my sky is still a little wet. So your sky may not be. But if it is, you can take a clean paper towel and just lay it on top of it, like this, across the top. And then you just dab a little bit. And just soak up that extra water. Another cool thing is that it adds a cool texture. You see where I added some texture. You may not be able to see it on the video, but it's really cool. Okay, now we're gonna start at the top and work our way down. One thing that we do not wanna do is cover up our birds. So if you have birds, when you go to do your clouds, you wanna work around them. Ideally, we would have done the birds on top, but once we paint the white on there, we can't use Sharpie on top of it because the white takes longer to dry. So we had to kind of work backwards on that, okay? But I still have plenty of space for clouds. So what you're gonna do is take your white and you're gonna dab and make some clouds. They can be big clouds, you can have lots of little clouds. Okay, so we're just dabbing to make our clouds. I'm gonna do one there and do one right here. And I'm just using one of my little paintbrushes. Another technique might be to circle it like this. You can swirl it. What I like about it is, again, it gives it that texture. And it might pick up some of the colors from the watercolor, because when watercolor gets wet again, it sometimes like you can like, it mixes with your paint sometimes, is what I'm trying to say, okay? So if it does get wet again, that's okay, because the clouds sometimes have the colors of the sky in them in a real sunset. It'd be pretty, huh? So I've got 3 clouds, and I'm gonna do another one right here. Okay, so there's my clouds. I worked around my birds, got my clouds in there. The other thing that we are going to do is we are going to add some white caps up here where the ocean is coming up to the sand. And you just dab on that too. I'm just gonna do some dabbing there. A lot of times you don't have very many of them out here, but you could do some little white swipes like this if you want to. Maybe it's an extra choppy day. Try not to get into your bird, but I just got over his bottom line a little bit, and that's okay. It's okay to go over your black line. And there is our picture. All right, you guys are done. You're gonna put it in the drying rack because it's still wet, but make sure you get your picture made with it before you put it in the drying rack. Your teacher will want your photo with your artwork, okay? Your name should already be on it. You're gonna put it in the drying rack, and then you can clean up your mess and get a drawing paper or a coloring sheet.